Most people watering a vegetable garden have no idea what is coming out of that hose. Researchers cut 32 garden hoses apart, tested every layer with X-ray fluorescence, and sent samples to a certified laboratory. One hose came back at 6.8% lead by weight. It is a house brand sold at the largest home improvement retailer in America. Here is what nobody is saying out loud. Some of the worst results did not come from the cheapest hoses. They came from the ones with reassuring labels, premium materials, professional lines, and one hose labeled drinking water safe that still contained phthalates. Researchers also filled 7 hoses with tap water, left them in place for 48 hours, and tested what came out. 3 of them leached lead. We are counting down all 10 from concerning to genuinely shocking, then finishing with the 3 that came back clean. Let us get into it. Number 10. Gilmore Medium Duty, 50 feet. This is the hose most people actually buy. Green, mid-priced, 50 feet sitting between the cheap one and the expensive one. Nothing about it looks like a problem. Here is how it was tested. Researchers at the Ecology Center in Ann Arbor bought 32 garden hoses from Amazon, Home Depot, Lowe's, Meijer, Target, and Walmart. Every hose was cut apart and its components tested separately. The flexible plastic was rarely one material. Some hoses had up to 5 stacked layers, and each layer was measured on its own with a high-definition X-ray fluorescence spectrometer. One point of honesty before the numbers. This testing was published in June 2016. Where the market has moved since then, we will say so. And there is one place where it genuinely has. The Gilmore Medium Duty came back at 106 parts per million of lead in the hose plastic, with phthalates also detected. That number is going to look small next to what is coming. Here is why it still matters. 100 parts per million is the federal limit for lead in children's products. This is a product children drink from. It crossed the line. Now the first thing you can do, and it costs nothing, before you read the price, read the tag. A California Proposition 65 warning on a garden hose usually means it contains lead. And if the tag does not name the material, assume vinyl polyurethane hoses are almost always labeled as such, while PVC hoses often specify nothing at all. Barely over the line is one kind of failure. The next 2 hoses were not contaminated by accident. They were filled with something that was never supposed to touch water. Number 9, Flexon Light Duty Reinforced. Number 8, Room Essentials Light Duty. Start with the Flexon, sold at Meijer. Bromine at 1,249 parts per million. Antimony at 1,829. Phthalates detected. Those first 2 words are the story, and they are worth 90 seconds of your attention because they explain half of this list. Bromine in a plastic almost always indicates brominated flame retardants. Antimony indicates the compound used alongside them to make those retardants work. Tin indicates organotin stabilizers, the kind used to keep wire and cable insulation from breaking down. Now ask the obvious question. Why would a garden hose contain flame retardants? It would not. Not on purpose. The researchers found bromine above 1,000 parts per million in 38% of the hoses tested, and it correlated strongly with lead, antimony, tin, copper, and gold. That combination is not a hose formula. It is the chemical signature of recycled electronic waste, old cable and wire insulation, ground up and used as filler. The lab's research director put it plainly. Material recovered from electronic waste has no business inside a product built to carry water, and it is being used there to save pennies. Number 8 is Room Essentials Light Duty, and this one is Target's own house brand. Bromine at 1,875 parts per million. Antimony at 2,494. Phthalates detected. Here is the part that should change how you shop. Target sells another hose under that same room. Essentials name a polyurethane coil hose. It measured 3 parts per million of lead. No phthalates. No antimony, no bromine. It was one of the 4 top-rated hoses in the entire study. Same store. Same brand on the tag. Opposite results. The brand did not decide this. The material did. Those 2 hoses never claimed to be safe. The next one did, in writing, and the claim was accurate. Number 7. Element RV and Marine, and Element Green and Grow. These are the hoses people buy on purpose. Nobody picks up an RV drinking water line by accident. You buy it because you are filling a fresh water tank or watering a vegetable bed, and you went looking for the safe option. The tag says drinking water safe. On the RV and Marine hose, there is a second claim printed alongside it. Meets California toy standards for phthalate content. Then the certified laboratory ran speciation on it, the test that identifies which specific phthalates are present, not just whether any are. It found 2, DNUP, at 1.3% of the hose by weight, DNP at 0.15%. Here is the mechanism, and it is the whole entry. 6 phthalates are restricted in children's products in the United States. Those 2 are not among them. The researchers noted directly that neither has been adequately studied. So, a product containing them can pass a phthalate standard accurately because the standard was written around the chemicals somebody already knew to worry about. Say the fair part out loud. That toy standard claim is true. The Ecology Center said so themselves in the report. Nobody lied on that tag. And the label did deliver on the things it is best at. Across the 10 hoses labeled drinking water safe, not one contained lead above 100 parts per million. Antimony, or tin, in the flexible layer. Bromine was low or undetectable, but 3 of those 10 contained phthalates. Element accounts for the ones we can name. The label was not a lie. It was a promise about the chemicals someone thought to regulate. That is a labeling problem. The next 2 hoses bought exactly the right material and were undone by a single piece of brass. Number 6. Ely and Parker. By now, the obvious conclusion has formed. Skip vinyl, buy polyurethane or rubber, pay more, and step around this entire problem. That instinct is correct. These 2 hoses are what happens when it is not enough. The Ely Premium polyurethane hose measured 459 parts per million of lead. The Parker Premium Rubber Contractor hose measured 3,778. Neither figure came from the hose. Both came from the metal fitting screwed onto the end of it. Here is why brass keeps appearing on this list. Brass is an alloy, and manufacturers have long added lead to it because leaded brass machines cleanly. It cuts smoothly on a lathe without tearing, which matters when you are producing threaded couplings by the million. The hose body can be genuinely clean. The water still enters through that fitting and sits against it every time the tap goes off. The study found exactly that pattern. Not one polyurethane hose contained chemicals of concern in the flexible part. But of the 3 polyurethane hoses not labeled safe for drinking, 2 had elevated lead in their brass. Now, the place where this industry has genuinely improved because it deserves saying. In 2011, researchers found elevated lead in 40% of the metal fittings they tested 44 out of 110. By 2015, that had fallen to 15%, 4 out of 27. The direction is real, but the same testing found that the label, not the material, was what reliably predicted a clean result. You can buy the right plastic and still buy the wrong hose. If you have made it this far, you are halfway. Everything so far has been what is inside the hose. The back half is what comes out of it, because researchers filled 7 of these with ordinary tap water, left them sitting for 48 hours, and sent that water to a laboratory. Number 5. Apex Never Kink. Number 4. Gilmore Flexogen Professional. Start with the Never Kink, sold at Lowe's. It is the hose bought by people tired of fighting a kinked line across a lawn. The plastic measured 366 parts per million of lead, antimony at 1,779, bromine at 1,592. Then the certified laboratory ran speciation on it and found 3 phthalates at once: DEHP at 1.3%, DINP at 3.9%, DIDP at 2%. Together, more than 7% of that hose by weight. Then came the water. Tap water left inside the Never Kink for 48 hours came out carrying 20 parts per billion of lead. The federal action level for lead in drinking water is 15. That is the number that ends the argument. Not what sat in the plastic. What came out of the end of the hose into a bucket, a dog bowl, a wading pool. And read what the tag said: lead-free couplings. The report names both Never Kink hoses as the reason that phrase should not reassure anyone. It covers the brass at the ends. It says nothing about the plastic your water actually spends its time inside. Number 4 is the Gilmore Flexogen Professional, 100 feet, the upgrade line. Its metal fitting measured 8,571 parts per million of lead. The plastic added 146 more, with bromine and antimony alongside it. You did everything right. You skipped the bargain bin. You bought the professional line, because professional sounds like a word that means tested. The label described the couplings. The water does not stop at the couplings. Those are the readings that leached. The next 3 are the readings that made this study news. Number 3, Hydro Hose Compact. Number 2, Swan. Number 1, HDX. The Hydro Hose is a polyurethane hose, the good material, the one this video has been steering you toward. Its metal fitting measured 15,732 parts per million of lead. That is the highest fitting reading in the entire study. Number 2 is Swan, and Swan earns this position by volume. No brand appears more often in the contamination tables. The Swan female and male liter measured 55,820 parts per million of lead, with antimony at 103,907. The female and female hose reel liter came in at 5,558. The hose reel liter measured 5,222. And when tap water sat inside it for 48 hours, that water came out carrying 13 parts per billion of lead. Swan Soft and Supple is the other hose the report names for that coupling label. And number 1 is HDX, the Home Depot house brand, in a 15-foot utility hose. 67,856 parts per million of lead. That is 6.8% of the hose by weight. The certified laboratory found 6 different phthalates in that single product: DIBP, DBP, DEHP, DINP, B2PHP, and DIDP. The researchers noted why that matters. An ordinary vinyl product contains 1 or 2. 6 suggests recycled PVC, pulled from many sources and melted together. Water left inside, it came out at 19 parts per billion of lead. None of this was illegal. Federal rules treat outdoor watering products differently from plumbing. Garden hoses are not held to the drinking water standards that govern permanent plumbing components, and products sold strictly for non-potable use are exempt from federal lead-free requirements outright. The law decided in advance that nobody drinks from a garden hose. Everyone does. Now that you know what to avoid, here are the 3 that came back clean. These are not consolation picks. They were cut apart on the same bench, measured with the same instrument, and printed in the same table as every hose you just heard about. Best option number 3, the Room Essentials Coil hose from Target. Polyurethane, 3 parts per million of lead, no phthalates, no antimony, no bromine. It was one of the 4 top-rated hoses in the study. The honest trade-offs. A coil hose gives you far less working reach than a 50-foot line, and this is the same store brand that failed at number 8. You are buying the specific hose, not the name on the tag. Best option number 2, Big Boss AquaStream Ultralight. Polyurethane, labeled drinking water safe. And the cleanest line in the entire results, table 0 lead, 0 antimony, 0 bromine, no phthalates detected, nothing. The trade-off is in the name. Ultralight construction is built for convenience, not for dragging across gravel behind a truck. Best option number 1, Water-Right Professional Coil. Polyurethane, 16 parts per million of lead, and nothing else detected. But the reason it takes the top spot is what happened before this study. Water-Right hoses tested positive for lead in the Ecology Center's earlier round in 2013. The founder did not dispute it. He redrafted the fitting design to make the product 99.9% lead-free, stayed in contact with the researchers throughout, and had every proposed solution tested. The flexible plastic is food contact grade polyurethane. The trade-off stated plainly. The drinking water safe polyurethane hoses were consistently the most expensive in the study, and the report says so. One pattern worth carrying out of this: every top-rated hose in that study was polyurethane, not one was vinyl. Before you close this, here is the one rule worth keeping. It replaces this entire list. Buy the material, not the adjective. Polyurethane, labeled drinking water safe. If the tag does not name a material at all, assume vinyl and put it back. Then learn to rank the labels, because they are not equal. Lead-free couplings is the weakest of them. It covers the brass at the ends and nothing else. And 2 of the most contaminated hoses in this video carried it. Lead-free covers the whole hose and is genuinely better. Of the 7 hoses tested with that label, not one had elevated lead, bromine, or antimony anywhere in it. 3 still contained phthalates. Drinking water safe was the most reliable label in the study. Across all 10 hoses carrying it, not one had elevated lead, antimony, or tin in the flexible layer. And a Proposition 65 warning is the clearest instruction printed on any hose tag. Put it down. 2 habits cost you nothing. Let the hose run for a few seconds before you fill anything or water food plants, because the water that has been sitting inside carries the highest concentrations. And store it in the shade. Heat drives leaching, and a coil baking on a hot driveway is the worst case in this entire video. Now weigh the cost. The clean hoses were the expensive ones. A hose is also something you buy once a decade, and it touches your vegetables, your dog's bowl, and your children. One last thing. This testing is a decade old, and the fittings have measurably improved since. What has not changed is the rule that lets a garden hose skip drinking water requirements entirely. That is why the tag is still doing the job no regulation does. If this changed how you look at that hose, send it to whoever has one running in the yard this weekend.